Hello and welcome to episode 215 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. My guest on the show today will be Richard Pretlow from the theme park Morgan's Wonderland. The San Antonio, Texas theme park shares a passion with us at the podcast. Morgan's Wonderland is an ultra-accessible theme park. It was created not just for kids with disabilities or special needs, but also thinking of parents and other adults with special needs as well. Deep in the heart of Texas, they have created a place where disabled people can let down their guards and enjoy a theme park as easily as able-bodied guests. Morgan's Wonderland also innovates in making individual rides more accommodating to guests with unique needs. These advancements are being seen by other companies in the theme park industry, leading to even more positive change. Before we get started, I just wanted to make my weekly pitch to make sure everyone is subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. Those of you who follow along to the YouTube channel got to see some of this upcoming interview last month. In addition to all of the theme park content that you would expect, I'm also trying to check out hiking trails, outdoor destinations, baseball parks, and historical locations. This month, in honor of St. Patrick's Day, I'm also sharing some pictures and videos from my visit to Ireland in 2022. Before and after my pilgrimage on Ireland's National Famine Way, I was able to experience a number of other locations in Ireland. Once you are subscribed, it would also really help us out if you would like and drop positive comments on some of our vlogs and podcasts. Right now, let's welcome Richard Pretlow of Morgan's Wonderland. Thanks for being here, Richard.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I want to give everybody who is listening a little bit of just an intro into Morgan's Wonderland. This is a theme park in the San Antonio area in Texas, but your goal, your mission is really, really special. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that to start?
Of course. So our mission is ultra-accessibility, and that's a word that is unique to Morgan's Wonderland, but we allow everybody to use it. So a little bit of the story about Morgan's Wonderland and how it came to be. So our founder, Gordon Hartman, was a home builder here in San Antonio, and his daughter, Morgan, who is the inspiration behind Morgan's Wonderland and everything we do, she was born with physical and cognitive special needs. Gordon, along with his wife, were on vacation in Orlando, and Morgan is very tall. She's a very tall girl, and at the time, she was nonverbal. She speaks now. She speaks very well, but at the time, she was nonverbal, and she wanted to play with some kids in the pool, and she approached them because they were playing with their ball, and the kids really didn't know how to interact with her, and so they grabbed their ball really quick, and they got out of the pool, and that really broke Gordon's heart. Because he wanted his daughter to be able to interact with those kids the same way that anybody else would interact with those children. And so that's where the inspiration for Morgan's Wonderland really came from. So when you look at our park, we are designed and built for the special needs community, but we really are for everybody. We take extra steps to make sure that those who are wheelchair users or those who have sensory challenges are fully included in everything we have here at the park. So we have one of the only carousels in the world that can accommodate a wheelchair user. We have one of the only Ferris wheels in the world that can accommodate a wheelchair user. We have one of the only 4D motion theaters in the world that can actually accommodate someone who is in a wheelchair. And what makes us really unique, you hear me talk a lot about wheelchairs. At our park, you do not have to transfer out of your wheelchair to experience our rides. You get to experience all of our rides, all of our attractions from the comfort of your own personal mobility device. Because one of the things I learned when I came here is that a lot of folks who use a wheelchair or a mobility device actually consider that to be a part of their body. So we don't want to separate anybody from their body. So that's what makes us so special and so important to this community and the theme park industry as a whole.
That is great because you will often see even, a lot of our listeners are used to the Disney and Universal parks. And while they try to be accessible, you talk about that ultra accessibility where on almost everything, they have to transfer off of a wheelchair if they're in a wheelchair. And to be able to still experience these things while having the comfort, and I imagine that's a safety issue, not safety in the big term, but a safety feeling. They still feel comfortable. They're still, using that chair that helps them throughout the day. That has to be an amazing feeling for a lot of these kids to, for the first time, not have to transfer, for them to be able to just ride a ride like everybody else. Getting onto the ride isn't anything different than it is for the able-bodied kids who are in line.
That's correct. And that's really what we're all about. Again, someone who uses a mobility device, they consider that to be a part of their body. And just like you mentioned with, our friends in Orlando at some of the larger parks, you do have to transfer with those attractions, but we allow you to stay in your mobility device and to experience all of our attractions with your family. There are no, special lines or special this or special that. Everything, you get to do everything included. That's what we're all about, is inclusion.
And you also mentioned sensory issues, and I know that is a really, really big thing. We talk a lot about people who are on the autism spectrum. I actually am on the autism spectrum. We have one of my co-hosts whose son is on the autism spectrum, and theme parks can be just incredibly overwhelming, overstimulating as far as those sensory issues. So what are some of the precautions that you put into place to make sure that, like you said, everybody can enjoy this park?
Of course. Well, I'll give you a very quick example with one of our newer attractions, the Magic Bikes, that was designed by Zamperla, who does a great job with ultra-accessible attractions. So the Magic Bike actually uses a very loud air compressor. Like a lot of rides do, they either use air compressors or hydraulics. If you go to a traditional theme park, usually the air compressors and hydraulic systems are not necessarily out in the open, but they're not covered up. You can hear all the sounds and all the activity that's going on with them. We actually, when we were designing this ride, we considered all those sounds that someone would experience. And so we actually have a special, I won't call it a house, but a special building that was built for all of the hydraulic and all of the air compressor units, so that when that ride is operating, you don't actually hear any of the mechanics that go behind making that ride operate. So for those folks who do have some sensory challenges with sound, in particular with this particular ride, they won't even hear any of those sounds that go along with that ride.
Incredible. Like, it's those small things that you might not think about as an everyday guest. You might not think about this thing triggering a kid or being a sensory issue for a kid. But like you said, it's just amazing to hear about all the things that you think of in advance so that these vacations can be great for everybody in the family. And one of the things that we like to talk about there's an organization in this area that tries to help out, kids in that in a lot of different situations. They're called Give Kids the World, and we've talked to them a few times. And one of the things that they focus on, and I'm sure is a great part about your organization as well, your theme park, is that you're actually giving these parents kind of a break, because you're thinking about the accessibility issues. You're the ones who are making sure that the sensory isn't overloading the kids. You're the ones making sure that they can just get the wheelchair on the ride. So not only are you doing an amazing thing for these kids, but parents who are taking care of a disabled kid or a kid with some sort of special need, for them to actually go on vacation and have a little bit of that burden taken away must be really great for those families as a whole.
It is. And, I 100% agree with what you're saying. It really does give the parents a break, where there is a place where they can come and their kids are included. They're not different or labeled as other. But, we're also for the adults as well. We see a large number of special needs adults and even special needs parents. And I'll give you an example. We actually have a dad who frequents the park. He's a military veteran. He's a wounded warrior. And unfortunately, when he was on a tour of duty, he actually lost his legs. So he came back. He was in a wheelchair. And his son was born while he was deployed overseas. And I was walking through the park one day, and this was my first opportunity meeting him. And he was by our playground, and he was crying. He looked very upset. And me being who I am, in the hospitality business, I said, "Sir, is everything okay? Can I help you with something?" And he said, "No, I'm just so happy because you don't understand. This is the first time I've been able to play with my son on a playground, because our playground is actually wide enough where someone who is in a wheelchair can actually go up and down and all around and be able to play with children, adults alike on this playground." So yes, we're for the kids, but we're also for the adults as well. And when we talk about special needs, it's not just, autism or someone who has a cognitive disability, but their parents are there as well who have special needs, who have able-bodied children, and they're able to come here and have a good time with their kids and with their family as a whole.
Richard, that story has actually made my day. I am so happy having heard that story because, you do think of it as terms of these kids being able to go to the theme parks. And I never even would have thought of, a father who was in that situation and being able to have fun with their able-bodied kids and have a place where they can go and not think about their disability. It's such an amazing opportunity. So, with these rides and these attractions that you put into place, do you have to think a lot about, maybe not being too thrilling, or do you try to put in some thrills because you're trying to appeal to not just, the kids who can't, you're trying to appeal to adults, as you said?
So as Morgan's continues to grow, as Morgan's Wonderland continues to grow, we are going to look for ways to up the thrill a little bit. So we're actually approaching our 15th anniversary, and I would say for maybe the first 13 or 14 years of our existence, we have been very focused on smaller age attractions for folks who were more in the lines of 2 to 12. But we actually, as I indicated before, we do have a lot of special needs adults. We do have a lot of special needs teenagers. And even for those folks who are not special needs, they're coming with a family. And one of the family members is a special needs family member, but there's a able-bodied teenager who wants to enjoy something that's a little more thrilling. So I'll give you an example. We just added a 130 feet zip line into our park this past year. So it actually goes 130 feet in the air. You see all of downtown San Antonio when you're at the top. Can hit speeds of 28 miles an hour, which sounds slow, but when you're when you're 130 feet in the air, it's pretty fast. So we are looking for different ways to up the thrill. One of our priorities in this business is always safety. You can ask any theme park executive, what's your number one priority? They're going to say safety. The logistics and the mechanics of a thrill ride with a wheelchair user on it, especially when you consider the fact that wheelchairs come in all different shapes and sizes and heights and just a myriad of things. It gets a little bit complicated, but one thing I am excited to say, and I'm glad to say, there are a lot of ride vendors out there who want to be part of this mission, who want to look for ways to do ultra accessible attractions. Gordon often tells a story in 2007 when he first went to the IAPA Expo, and he said he wants this type of ride that can accommodate a wheelchair user. He said most folks laughed him out of the room. Nobody knew who he was, wanted to deal with him. They thought he was crazy. And now we have ride vendors who are excited to talk about not just accessibility, but ultra accessibility as well, and what that really means in the theme park space. So over the next couple of years, you will see Morgan's look more towards some thrilling type attractions. We're never going to have the biggest, baddest, tallest, fastest, whatever in the world, but we are going to look for ways to up the thrill a little bit from some of the more kid-like attractions that we've had in the park.
Right. And it's important to bring that up because accessibility means a lot of different things. So one of the things I do love is when there are attractions that are, 8 to 80 or 2 to 92 or whatever, because it is important to have the entire family enjoy a vacation, and a place like this where everybody can get together and spend that time together. Yeah, there are a lot of places where you can go to get that fast inverted roller coaster, but some place where the family can be together, everybody can ride every ride. I think that is something that's really important. And one of the things that I love about Morgan's Wonderland as well is the location. You are in the San Antonio area, so this isn't going to some remote place to go to a theme park. You can make this a part of a San Antonio vacation. And I know I've been to San Antonio. I absolutely love it. Love going to the Riverwalk, seeing some of the missions that are in the city. Just if you could talk about the advantage of being in such an amazing city where people can come from all throughout the country, and maybe your theme park is 1 or 2 days of that vacation, but it can be part of a bigger vacation as well.
It really can. San Antonio, when it comes to tourism, is really the hub of tourism in Texas. If you think about it, we have more theme parks, we have more water parks, we have more attractions than anywhere you go in Texas. We have SeaWorld San Antonio, we have Six Flags Fiesta Texas, we have the San Antonio Zoo, the Alamo, the Riverwalk, as you had mentioned. There are just so many things to do. It's really, I would say it's impossible to be bored in San Antonio. I'm sure somebody can find a way to be bored, but there's really a ton to do. And for me in particular, I've lived in 6 different states, and I can tell you San Antonio is definitely the funnest place that I've ever lived. There's just so much to do, whether you're into sports, you're into outdoor attractions, you're into history, you're into nature. The list just goes on and on and on, and you can really make a whole week-long vacation out of San Antonio. So that's what really makes this city great.
And I love that you bring up other theme parks in the area, other amusement parks in the area. You talk about the history, because when it comes to travel, I think, a rising tide lifts all boats, because the more people that you can bring into the area, you're not viewing these other theme parks, these other amusement parks as your competition. You're viewing everybody as a way to bring more people to San Antonio. And I think you're serving such an incredible purpose, because you can maybe go to one of those other amusement parks and ride the thrilling roller coaster, and then have a day where everybody can sort of relax and enjoy some different rides. And maybe the kid who had to stand and watch his older brother ride the roller coasters on Tuesday, on Friday gets to experience rides that are more his speed, and maybe he tries the zip line at the end and gets that thrill, but it's a nice stepping stone towards some of those other attractions. I just really do like that sense that everybody's in it together in the community there in San Antonio.
Yeah, we really are, and it's again, like I said, it's a great place to live, and like you said, in tourism and hospitality, a high tide raises all ships. And that's a lot of what we experience here in San Antonio. We're also benefited from the fact that a lot of us here in this business have worked together at some point. I've worked for both the major theme parks that are here in town. I've been an executive with Six Flags. I've been an executive with SeaWorld. So we have great relationships with those parks. We have a great relationship with the zoo. The CEO and I used to work at SeaWorld together. So it's just, there's so much collaboration that goes on. We're not in competition with each other. We're really in collaboration with each other.
And do you think a theme park like Morgan's not only creates this separate space of ultra accessibility, but maybe it puts into the minds of the people at SeaWorld, at Six Flags, at all of these other locations, it says to them, you can work a little harder to be more accessible. You're creating the blueprint for accessible rides, like you mentioned earlier about the ride with the outside apparatus that would make some noise. That might not be a thing other theme parks would have thought of before you guys came up with a solution. So do you think that not only are you creating this one safe space, but maybe you're putting some better ideas out into the zeitgeist that will make all theme parks more accessible?
Certainly, Morgan's, we're so much more than just a theme park. We're a place where you can learn and see what accessibility really is about. And, I'll use myself as an example. I've spent my entire career in traditional theme parks, working for Six Flags, SeaWorld, Crayola Experience. And so coming here has been a real learning experience for me. But, we have companies come to the park all the time because they want to see the things that we do, from companies as small as, one park, to some really major players in the theme park space who have multiple properties doing 3 to 5 million in attendance a year. So folks already see us as that place where they can learn, and where they can learn about ultra accessibility and things they can do for the disabled and the special needs community. We're going to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to do more of that. We're going to continue to do it. We're going to continue to do it better. And again, just like I said before, we're going to continue to innovate on attractions. We're going to continue to innovate on ultra accessible experiences. And those are all things that we can be a beacon of light unto the industry.
When we speak of accessibility, are there special accommodations that you find you have to make in the food department, where a lot of other theme parks may just be like, here are your chicken nuggets, here are your French fries, but you have to have a wider variety of foods, or you have to think about different allergies and things like that, where accessibility means more than just people with physical disabilities?
So in terms of food service, one of the things that makes Morgan's unique versus a traditional theme park, we are probably the only theme park in the United States, maybe even the world, where you get to bring in your own food. So if you have a special dietary restriction, or you have a certain allergy, or whatever the case may be, you can bring your own food as much as you want. You can bring in a cooler, a thermos, what have you. So that's one of the things that we do to make sure that our friends with special needs are accommodated. Now, in terms of our traditional food service, that is more kind of like what you would see at a traditional theme park. We do take measures to make sure that all of our items are net free, tree net free, things like that. But you will find the traditional chicken tenders, fries, burgers, those types of things. But for our folks who do have dietary restrictions, we allow them to bring their own food into the park.
That's amazing, because in a smaller theme park that's not acres and acres and acres out in the middle of nowhere, where you're building your own restaurants, at least it's good to know that you're not going to nickel and dime people, and they're going to be able to bring in the things they need. And I know a lot of people who have special dietary restrictions that even if you say, oh, we're going to try to accommodate what you want, they just feel more comfortable if they're making the meal themselves. They are in control of everything, because when you start, you mentioned nut allergies and things like that. When you start talking about these types of issues, they can be very, very serious. And sometimes you just don't want to mess around with that. What's the area like, as far as if I was going to be traveling and planning a vacation to San Antonio, was going to go to Morgan's Wonderland as part of that vacation? Do you have a lot of hotels in the area? How would you just go about planning that trip?
So the area that we're in, there are not a ton of hotels in this area. There are a few that are more business oriented. I'm very excited to say that Morgan's will be building the first ultra-accessible hotel. So I would say if you want more information on that, check out morgans.org. But we are building an ultra-accessible hotel that we're pretty excited about. But in this area in general, there are not a lot of hotel accommodations. You will find a lot of hotels concentrated in the downtown Riverwalk area that are both family and business oriented. You'll also find a lot of hotels in the areas that are surrounding some of the larger tourist areas, such as the Alamo, Six Flags Fiesta Texas, and even SeaWorld have a couple of more hotel options that you'll find. But as time goes on, I think you'll see the accommodation options around our immediate neighborhood start to expand, with one of those being the Morgan's Hotel.
That's incredible that you are doing this at a hotel level, because when you talk about influencing other areas, a super inclusive hotel is something that I really think will be a positive in the market. It does look, however, like Morgan's is easily accessible, even if there aren't a ton of hotels and accommodations in the general area.
We are. One of the things about San Antonio, we have traffic just like everybody else, but it's pretty easy to get here, there, and everywhere, wherever you want to be. I mean, we're close to all the major attractions. If you want to go downtown, 20 minutes. You want to go to Six Flags Fiesta Texas, that's about another 20 minutes. If you want to get to SeaWorld, that's a little bit further out because it's on the west side of San Antonio. But this is a pretty accessible city. We're very close to the airport. We're only about 12 to 15 minutes away from the airport. As a matter of fact, you can actually see the planes taking off when you're out in our parking lot. So very accessible city. It's easy to get here. We're right off one of the main highways. So there are no challenges at all for anybody to get here. And on top of that, we have 43 accessible parking spaces right out there in the front. So you don't have to worry about us running out of parking.
You know, it's all of those little details that I just never would have thought of, but making sure that you have the accessible parking. And I actually, I have had your map up on my other computer here as we've been having this conversation. And I don't know if this is intentional. I'm assuming it was, but it appears like your parking lot was actually built with the idea of having more of those parking spaces have quick access to the entrance to the park. Just the curvature of the parking lot makes it look like everybody has easier access to get up on the sidewalk and get to the entrance. So, you are definitely always thinking of the little things with this park. Now, you're not open all year long, so what are the dates of Morgan's Wonderland? And if somebody is planning a trip, do you get a ticket for the day? Do you get a ticket, by the week? Like, how do you go about planning that trip?
Our season runs all the way through the first part of November. We actually don't do a Christmas celebration here, but our operating calendar is very similar to what you would find at a traditional theme park. We go daily. Memorial Day, we have a water park that's open all the way through the beginning of October. So lots of cool stuff to offer. If you want more info, you can always go to morganswonderland.org. We have our operating calendar. We also have our tickets available on the website as well. So we have traditional season passes like any other theme park. So our entry level pass is our bronze pass. Then we move up to our silver and our gold, and you get special discounts. You get bring a friend free tickets. You can check all that out at morganswonderland.org. And then we also have our day tickets. Prices do vary on those just depending on the day of the week and the time of the season.
All right, Richard, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I am so excited to have some of our listeners hear about a more accessible theme park. And I hope, like we said earlier, that the inspiration of Morgan's Wonderland will rub off on some other theme parks, and maybe we will see accessibility continue to get better so everybody can enjoy these places. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
This has been episode 215 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. For those of you who are still interested in more about Morgan's Wonderland, you can check out a video I ran last month on the YouTube channel. The video contains parts of this interview, but also shows images and videos that Morgan's Wonderland was nice enough to provide for me. It was really great of the park to provide us with that much extra content. Sarah says we'll be back next week with a really fun conversation. Our attention returns to Disney theme parks to talk about when animatronics go wild. This has nothing to do with spring break, but when animatronics on Disney theme park rides start to break down in entertaining ways that are destined to go viral in a world in which everyone has a video camera in their pocket. These malfunctions not only give us tons of good laughs, but they also give us insight into how much work goes into each and every one of these animatronics. You will also notice that the major examples come from newer attractions, which leads to a conversation about whether Disney is building these animatronics with the same quality as they had in the past. This is all coming up next Thursday on Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Until then, have a great week.